Welcome to the fifth and final training video for the Aging and Disability Resource Connection for Mecklenburg County. The Area Agency on Aging and Disability Rights and Resources have been instrumental in completion of this project. The first video, Orientation to ADRC or CRC, can help you with the development of a collaborative to improve service delivery for seniors and people with disabilities regardless of their age. Secondly, disability awareness helps us understand the etiquette of working with people of all abilities. Aging and disability service providers working together, and person-centered versus consumer control round out the series. This video will work to dispel 10 common myths of aging that have crept up in our society. I'm 52 years old, and I'll be your guide today in busting myths of aging. So let's begin with a 10-question true or false quiz called, What do you want to know about aging? Number 1, true or false? In general, elderly people are all alike. Question 2, the majority of older people are senile or demented. Number 3, true or false? Elderly people have no worries once they retire and start enjoying life. Question number 4, the elderly do not desire and do not participate in sexual activity. Number 5, most elderly people are set in their own ways and are unable to change. True or false? The elderly are unproductive and uncreative. They cannot work as effectively as younger people. True or false? Number 7, the elderly are slow to learn, less intelligent, and more forgetful. True or false? Question number 8, elderly people are crabby and hard to get along with. Number 9, the majority of elderly people are isolated and lonely. And finally, question number 10, true or false? Elderly people become more religious as they age. Before we review the answers, I wonder if you've ever heard the term ageism. Dr. Robert Butler, a geriatrician and the first director of the National Institute on Aging, coined the term ageism in 1968 to describe the myths, stereotypes, and misunderstandings that society has about people as they age. Like racism and sexism, people often make sweeping general statements about older adults that are just not true. Ageism makes judgments about the actions, character, and desires of people based solely on their advanced stage, with the sense that old age is inferior somehow to youth. Ageism developed slowly in our society as a whole, began to put a greater value on youth than on aging. There are several reasons why these types of myths have developed. Advertising and television and movies, books and magazines tend to build on the idea that being young is a good thing and being old is bad. Marketing products geared toward keeping us youthful and shying away from showing aging as dignified or requiring our respect. Another reason people believe myths about aging is that they often do not spend time with older adults in general, other than those in their own family or community. People who believe stereotypes about older adults may feel there's no real benefit to getting to know them since they seem to have little to offer. Finally, people may also believe the myths of aging because solid facts about normal aging are hard to come by. As the size of our population has grown, so has the interest in reliable research, and more factual information about the aging process is growing. Today, more than 10,000 people a day turn 65. It's important to remember that aging is not a disease or a disability. People of all ages experience disability, but it will be as a result of an accident, illness, or genetics. Getting a day older is not an illness and will not result in automatic dementia, deafness, blindness, or even arthritis. Also, Reaching your 100th birthday is not only possible, but likely as medicine continues to advance. It's been said, you age as well as you live. So, our level of physical and mental ability will depend not on how many birthdays you have, but more on the circumstances in your life that will influence your mind and body. Aging is a process. It starts at birth, ends at death, and we all go through it. And we all experience it a little bit differently. You can take control of much of your life and reduce your risk of accident and illness through being safety-minded, wearing helmets and other protective gear when involved in risk-taking activities, maintaining a healthy lifestyle, including a good diet and regular exercise, establishing good relationships with friends, social groups, and having a strong belief system are all examples of things that you can do now at any age. Together, we can also increase our knowledge of aging and be open to new ideas and to eliminating our false judgments regarding growing old. We can do that now by answering the quiz questions from the beginning of the video. In general, elderly people are all alike. True or false? The idea that we become more alike as we age is pretty common, but false. We quickly see the uniqueness of a child, but tend to group old people together into sameness as we age. Just the opposite is true. As we age, we become less like our peers than younger people. This uniqueness happens because as the years pass, people learn different things, face different things, and respond differently to life's occurrences. Also, the actual number of years lived affects people differently. Some people are old at 65, and others are young at 90. Everyone ages physically, emotionally, and spiritually at a different rate. So the longer we live, the more chance we have to be different. Question number 2. The majority of elderly people are senile or demented. The word senile actually means to grow old or to age. It has come to mean dementia, and dementia is not a normal part of aging. It is a disease that affects the brain and the nervous system. Alzheimer's disease is a type of dementia. Only 5% of those over 65 will ever develop this disease called dementia. So that's false. Question number 3. Elderly people have no worries once they retire and start enjoying life. Many of us are familiar with the term golden years when referring to retirement. Not all older people view those years as golden. Many older people face poverty, isolation, grief, physical decline, loss of social stature, and decreased control over their lives. These stresses may be reduced by help from family, friends, churches, public agencies, or community networks. But no matter how much help is given, some stresses cannot be avoided, and some people are not able to cope with their situation. Suicide rates are higher for people over the age of 65 than for younger people. So this is false as well. Number 4, the elderly do not desire and do not participate in sexual activity. There is a strong belief in our society that sex is for the young and that old people should not or cannot engage in sexual activity. Old and young people alike believe this myth. Many older people stop sexual relations because they've learned it's bad for them. Elderly people who continue to have sex often even feel guilty. Either way, it has a devastating emotional effect on them. Research has found that sexual activity and enjoyment do not decrease with age. People with physical health, a sense of well-being, and a willing partner are more likely to continue sexual relations. People who are bored with their partner mentally or physically tired, afraid of failure, or overindulge in food or drink are unlikely to engage in sexual activity regardless of their age. And these are reasons that do not differ a great deal when considering whether or not a person will engage in sex at any age. So this is false. Question number 5. Most elderly people are set in their own ways and unable to change. Inflexibility means to be resistant to change and to be unable to adapt to new situations. People of any age can be inflexible. Increased age does not make a person inflexible. Really, the opposite is true. Older people must adjust to changes such as retirement, disease, illness, death of family and friends, and changes in their lifestyle. Without the ability to accept change, adjustment to these changes would be impossible. Research shows older people may change their opinions slower than younger people, but most remain open to change throughout their entire life. Myth number 6. The elderly are unproductive, uncreative, and they cannot work as effectively as younger people. This idea probably comes from the fact that society equates productivity and creativity with employment and earning money. In reality, many older people have the freedom after retirement to develop their creative side. People now have time to be active in volunteers in all areas. Many elderly people remain active and productive throughout their lives. We would be missing a great deal without their creativity. Question number 7. The elderly are slow to learn, less intelligent, and more forgetful. There are differences in learning rates and styles between age groups, but it would be incorrect to say that older people have difficulties learning. Preschoolers learn differently from children in grade school, and both learn differently from high schoolers. We do not assume these differences are wrong. How older adults learn are different from younger learners, but that does not mean that they cannot understand new information. Question number 8. Elderly people are crabby and hard to get along with. Young and middle-aged people who are able to get along well with others will be able to do so when they get older. And people who are difficult to get along with when they were young will most likely be difficult to get along with when they get older. How people adjust to change, accept and respect others when they're young will most likely be their style as they age. Myth number 9. The majority of older people are isolated and lonely. 60% of the population at large sees the elderly as lonely. Many people believe the elderly as usually abandoned by their families. Despite these beliefs, most elderly people are not abandoned by family and usually have close contact with one another. When asked about loneliness, only 12% of the elderly felt loneliness was even a problem. Family and friends largely determine whether or not an elderly person is lonely, and rarely is an elderly person totally abandoned in our society. And finally, question number 10. Elderly people become more religious as they age. Members of the present older generation did not really become more religious as they aged, but grew up in a time when there was more formal religious training given to children. Their lives were often started on a more religious path that continued throughout their life. It seems the difference is generational rather than age-related. Well, how'd you do? If you may have noticed that all the questions were false. Dr. Butler felt that ageism is a form of bigotry and that it's a very serious national problem. He felt that these myths and stereotypes that we've talked about today are so deeply ingrained in our society that it might be hard to change. Over the years, a number of things may help to reduce this prejudice in aging. The older population is growing rapidly in our nation, and as these numbers increase, so will the power and influence over politics, society, and economics. More youth will have contact with older members of society, And the elderly themselves will then have an opportunity to help eliminate ageism. Thank you for taking time out to review this video today. I hope it's been helpful in busting some myths of aging. Remember, aging is not an illness or a disease, but a process that we all go through, starting at birth, ending at death, and we all go through it differently. Happy aging.